Some people call it a vision, some people call it a mission statement, but what's the why behind your business? Like, what are you trying to do? And I think you've gone through that exercise before, but there has to be alignment on that. If you're not aligned on that, then you're not going to be able to work together.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of the 8-Figure Agency Show, where a successful entrepreneur and a soon-to-be successful entrepreneur help you build an 8-figure agency by documenting our successes and our failures. And Gary, I want to start off this episode by telling a little quick story that I think the listeners and you are going to really appreciate it. I've been going through a lot of struggles recently in the businesses, and one of which we're going to talk through today around vision, mission, culture, values, etc. Right? And I was like, I wonder who could help me with this, or what I could look up that could help me with this. And then I realized I'm a co-host on a podcast that helps agency owners build better agencies. And I said, what is the likelihood that Gary has already told me this, and I just need to be reminded? So what did I do? I went on YouTube, Googled our show, scrolled through the videos, and guess what? One of them said, how to fix your team culture, what you need to know about culture. And I watched the episode, and it answered a significant amount of my questions. A couple extra questions that I wanted to bring up in today's episode, but my point with this story is, Gary, we've done well over 50 episodes now of really specific topics to solve really specific pain points for agency owners around their journey. And I just think it's something we should be proud of, Gary. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been good. And I think that's helped some people, and that's been super fun.
That's been amazing. It's definitely helped me. And sometimes I forget that I have this show as a resource. And I have to go back to it a little bit more because you answered a lot of my questions. And a lot of the same things I'm going through today happen to be the exact same things I'm going through a year ago. Because we're just about, actually, Gary, I reckon this is just about our year anniversary while we're recording this video since we started this show. We've been doing this for a year.
Yeah, that's crazy. So we're on what episode is this?
I don't know the exact number. It's definitely in the 50s though.
That's so crazy. Check. Yeah, most podcasts fail around 20, 21, 22, somewhere in there.
We're still here. We're still chugging, and I want to keep the show alive. And real quick update for the audience: we might be doing a slight drop in episode uploads. We might be going from 4 to 2 just for a few months. Have some travel coming up that's going to make it tough to film, but we will be still pumping out some high quality content for you guys there to keep you guys engaged and entertained and educated. With that said, Gary, wanted to touch on a topic today that I've been struggling with a lot recently, especially in our newest venture that I have a business partner with, and it really centers around the following. Number one, how to build a business successfully with a business partner where we don't do too much of talking, feeling like we're actually doing work, where we actually work on the things that matter. And secondly, how do we get clear on our vision and our mission? Because something that we've been really struggling with, and I struggle with this in my past company, Mirror Media as well, is like, how do we know that we're working with the right people, that we're offering the right services, that we're actually providing value? And everything stems back to, what is our purpose? What is our mission? What is our vision? So I'd love to chat through both of those things today and see what advice you'd have for myself and for everybody watching and listening.
Yeah, so I think at the core of it, you start with, for me, I like to start with the values. Like, what are your core values of your company? And that's like the backbone of who you are. And so it's like, okay, you start with like 20, you just literally, you can go to ChatGPT and just write some down, say, give me some creative names around these. And then you can write down some other ones as well. And you get a list of like 20 and you say, which of these we are not willing to compromise on. Like, we won't, even if someone came and gave us $1 billion, we wouldn't do it. Right. Or these things have to be involved. And so now what you don't want to do, what a lot of people do, and I did this at first, is like, well, we want people who are honest and hardworking. And it's like, well, yeah, that's bare minimum to get in the company. I'm assuming that you are honest. I'm assuming that you're going to work hard. I'm assuming so you don't want your core values to be assumptions. But once you have your core values, then it's going to feed it back up into your why. Now, some people call it a vision. Some people call it a mission statement. But what's the why behind your business? Like, what are you trying to do? And I think you've gone through that exercise before, but there has to be alignment on that. If you're not aligned on that, then you're not going to be able to work together. That's really, really important.
Yeah, we definitely have alignment, but interestingly enough, we have alignment in all the values and everything. We just haven't taken the time to write it out, because when it comes to mission and vision, I'd love your advice on this. We've kind of been going through this vicious cycle of like, okay, does the market actually need or want our service? That's like the first thing. Like, who actually wants to pay for this? Who wants this? And it's
a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So that's why I'm calling it a why instead of a vision. So I would focus on your core values and your why. Your core values and your why is really interchangeable between your businesses. So if you end up serving doctors, it's still going to work. If you end up serving content creators, it's still all going to work. Yeah, you might change the verbiage a little bit, change the words a little bit just to better communicate, but your core values and your why are the backbone of what you're going to do regardless of who you serve. So you're actually asking two radically different questions.
The problem we've been experiencing, you're totally right, is we keep going back to like, well, to figure out if what we're doing makes sense, shouldn't we come up with our vision first to see if what we're doing aligns with our vision before we even question the market side of things, or are we doing that order wrong?
I would to make sure that here's the thing, you're trying to figure out a complex problem of like, hey, who to serve, why to serve them, how to serve them, all those kind of things, right? So who to serve, why to serve, how to serve them, right? You're trying to figure that complex thing out. To figure that complex thing out, you have to have alignment between you and your business partner. How do you get alignment between you and your business partner? You have core values in writing that you've agreed to, and you have a why you're doing it attached to that. Your why. Start with why. So have you read the book Start With Why?
I actually think I have, and I forgot about it till you just mentioned it.
So it's why, what, and then how is last. Not the other way around. So the example
what, how. Okay.
Yeah. I believe it's called the golden circle. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you start with why. So what most businesses do is they do the opposite. They start with what, or they start with what, and then they go to how. So they go, oh, we make videos. Well, how? We do it through this process. Why? I don't know, to make money or to be able to go on vacation or whatever. Well, you lose the power behind that. Right? So he uses two companies. He uses Apple versus all the other computer companies out there. So he's like, Apple, when they market, they go, this product's going to make you feel important. This product's going to make you very productive. This product's going to make you head and shoulders above your competition. They actually don't talk about the computer, right? Like in their marketing, they talk about how it's going to make you feel, and it ties into their why. Where computer companies, all the other computer companies are like, we have a computer and it has this much RAM and it has this much terabytes and they start with what? That's the opposite of what you want to do.
Okay, that was tremendously valuable, Gary, and I think you have just helped me escape a mental vicious cycle that we have literally had multiple meetings about, multiple anxious and stressful days. Wow, okay, great. A question for you about the why. What is your process and advice around how to figure out what your why actually is in that case? And how, and the sub-question to that is, what the terminology, what differentiates your vision, your purpose from your mission and your why? What makes those different?
Well, so the why, so your core, so first I would start with your core values. Like what are the things that are uncompromising? What are the 4 or 5 pillars that these are our values that we're always going to follow and that we're not going to compromise on, right? Like these are not compromising, and you want them in writing, and you want to both say, we agree to this, right? Then from there, your why is why you are going to operate your business. So for ours is we're always growing. Before that, it was longer, and we kept just refining it. Right now, it's always growing. That's why we do what we do. For me, that really resonates because if I'm not growing, then I don't want to do it. Like we're not even going to enter into the conversation if we're not growing. Then from there, then you start to figure out, okay, well, what is our product? Does it align with this? See, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take a product and then squeeze it back into something else later. I wouldn't do that because your core values are going to help you dictate your product, who to serve, all those kind of things. So that's now the difference between like your mission is like what you're setting out to do. This company serves, and your why is going to probably be in there. Where a vision is like where you're going. So that's totally different. And if you Google search, all you have to do is just Google search, like I just did a quick Google search, like mission, vision, worksheets, or go into ChatGPT and just be like, hey, help me, what's some good worksheets for X, Y, and Z, whatever you're trying to accomplish. But I would for sure start with core values and your why first. Then figure out, once you're aligned on that, then it doesn't matter which way your company goes, Derek, because now you have a compass to help you stay on track.
That's huge. We've literally been trying to make it reverse. The reason it's been so difficult is we've been trying to fit a service into a new vision, when instead we should create the vision, then see if the service fits the vision. And that's why we've been struggling. We need to forget all about what we're doing, who we're helping, how much money we're making, put all of it aside for a week if we have to, and just sit down and say, what are our uncompromisable values of how we want to operate this company, how we work, how we live? What are those values? Like in my current company, like I did that, and it's like radical communication, never satisfied, creativity, like those types of things. Right? And I have a couple more. That's really helpful. My question to you then would be this: can a company have a why, but then also a separate vision and a purpose?
Because well, purpose is pretty similar to a why. Like there's debate about all this, but I'm just going to make it really simple for you. So the golden circle is this: start with why, then focus on how, then focus on what. But what everybody else does is they go focus on what, then how, then why, and that's backwards.
Let's go a little deeper on that, Gary. What advice would you have to figure out your why? Are there any questions that you have used to help you? Like, okay, guys, let's ask ourselves these questions to get to the core why. Any structure, like anything at all that helps?
Yeah, so Simon Sinek does some really good stuff on why. Like, it has to be mutually beneficial for everybody involved. People would have to want to do it for free. Like, you shouldn't have to pay people to be involved with it, right? Like, you're going to pay people to be involved, but you shouldn't have to when you tie in your why. And mutually beneficial, tying people would want to do it for free. And it should be positive, not negative. Like, it shouldn't be our why is to destroy every single marketing company in the world, right? Like, that's a negative why. You want a positive why of how you're going to make the change and what that's going to look like. So those are a couple. There's more out there.
Yeah, no, I think when we initially talked about this, Gary, literally, this was episode 4. It was so awesome to look back on that, because just a quick side note for the OG fans out there, I was recording in like my grandma's brother's house, and I had the 2 lamps in behind me and all that stuff. It was crazy. But in that episode, when we talked about this, Gary, some advice you gave me is you said to keep it as short as we possibly can. So like we actually talked through it. You're like, listen, Derek, start with like a big sentence and then keep cutting out the words until you get something like always growing, right? Like, so one I heard recently that was like, that's really good, was like making the impossible possible. I was like, oh my God, that's so good.
It's so good, right? Because you're like, I want to be involved.
I want to be involved. Yes. Yeah. It's so powerful. It's really powerful. Do you have any other frameworks or questions? So you mentioned the book Start With Why. Traction, is that another one that would be worth checking out? I remember I think you recommended that. That one's going to help you more structure. That's going to more help you structure your your core values and those kind of things. Yeah. So, but start with why. And then, but again, before you even get to your why, you need core values that holds up your why. Because let me give you an example. If I say my why is make impossible possible, and I have no values attached to that, bro, you can go really get into some crazy stuff with that, right? But then if I start saying one of our values is we're only going to use our AI software for good, never evil, or we're only going to, right? Like, we start to give some context to it with values that prop it up. That's huge. So I would start with your core values and then build your why around on top of that. That's how I would do it. So start with our core values. And I remember you mentioned like anywhere from like 3 to 5 is the optimal amount. Anything more than that sometimes gets diluted, I reckon, right?
You just won't remember them. So people are like, what are our core values again? And it's like, oh, we got like 9 of them. And it's like,
yeah, it's too much. Yeah, for me, I found 3 to 5 is really good. I got to say, quick side note, it is the best feeling when a team member quotes core values to you. I've had a couple one-on-ones recently and a couple team meetings when they're like, oh yeah, and then they quote the core value, and I was like, I just like melted in my chair. I was like, that's why I do this. Those are the little moments that it reminds you of like why business is amazing. But so basically you're saying start with core values, and we're going to do that. Then start with your why. And I think one thing I would add personally to help anybody who's kind of going through it like I am, because I'm going through it, I would say, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Gary, is like be patient. Like, you don't have to figure it out right now. You don't have to figure it out today. Sit on it. Take a week, take 2 weeks if you have to, until you get something that like is really that refined version. I think sometimes I fail at this a lot, Gary. I rush things way too much, and I'm very impatient. Like, I like to tell myself that I play the game in decades, but then like I'll say that today, and then tomorrow I'll be worrying about the metrics that we won't even get for a week. That's my struggle. I've been really struggling with that. Yeah,
exactly. No, all entrepreneurs do. We want things fast, but I will say building your core values, the first time you do it is going to be very painful. Because you're going to have a lot of debates. And the reason you're going to have a lot of debates internally and externally is because you don't have them nailed down yet. So you that's part of the process. It should be laborious. And now once you know it, then you know it right away and you're like, this is it. And then you have to change them. So let me give you a little quick story that will help the audience. We just went through and changed all of our core values. And it's like, well, why?
Really? Okay.
Yes, because the core values that we had were for a startup company with like 15 team members who were like grinding and like hustling to get to where we were at. But then we started looking at them and going, these core values are not going to get us to where we want to go. They're just not. We need other things that are more important than these things to be at the center of what we do. But guess what? Our why didn't change though. The things that support the why changed, but our why stayed the same.
So that's really interesting, Gary, because you just gave me permission and everybody watching and listening to be comfortable changing their core values. Like, actually, I've never thought about doing that. And actually, interestingly enough, I might do that for Mirror Media because I've been noticing a couple things that haven't served us anymore. They're like, we should probably change these. Like, one of them is like speed. I want to make that one of my core values. I'm thinking, which one of them can I didn't even know that I had the option to do that, ironically enough. That's really powerful.
The other thing that just popped in my head, like when we changed our core values, we didn't just go and say, we're changing all our core values. Here's the new ones. We went and said, I created with the leadership team. So there's 3 of us. We said, here's a list of core values. We had like 40 on there. And I was like, I like pretty much all of these. Which ones don't you guys like? And they were like, I don't like this one. And I'm like, I don't like this one. So we whittled it down to like 30, 35, right? And I'm like, I'm good with all of these. And everybody else in the room was good with all of them. So then we passed it to our managers, right? And we said, which do you guys like? And we had them vote and we had them pick the top, I think it was like 10. And we said, okay, cool. Now we have 10. Then we sent it and I said, is everybody good with these 10? Like if we got any one of these 10, is everybody good with it? And everybody's like, yep. So then we shipped off all 10 of them to our whole team and said, vote on these and pick our core values because we're only going to keep 5. And so we had our whole team. So what's the point of that exercise? You're involving everybody. They're not Derek's core values. They're our core values.
That's really, okay, that's really interesting because my first instinct was like, okay, I'm just going to go change it, let the team know I changed it. But now if I do it the other way around, it's actually really powerful. I think my team might be a little small for that though, right?
You still want them involved. You got to get them involved. Somehow get them involved. Even if it's you curating a list and then letting them pick it from that list, get them involved because then the more you can involve people, the more it's going to resonate with them and they take more ownership in it.
And it also helps with stickiness of team members as well, right? Makes them more invested, makes them more involved. No, I love it. I think that was super helpful. So start with your core values, then go to your why, then check if your products or services align with that why. Don't compromise in the why. Give yourself permission to change the core values, but involve your team in that process of changing the core values like you just described. I love it. Gary, I guess the last question of today's episode, it's a little bit of a sidebar, but it really helps because for anybody who might have a business partner, I've recently started a new endeavor and have a business partner, and I've never had one before. If you recall, about 6 months ago, you actually tried to you had to humble me. You were like, Derek, the only reason you don't want to give up equity in any of your companies is because you think it's an ego thing, right? You want to be the 100% owner of the company. And you're right. I didn't know how to do it. Like, I didn't want to be a 50% owner. I wanted to be a 100% owner. I wanted to be the guy. It is an ego thing, right? But since then, I've been able to humble myself and, I've gotten a business partner. But what I've struggled with is a couple things, really 2 main things. We tend to talk more than we do. And we tend to feel productive by talking. And we tend to talk a lot because we like, oh, there's this problem and this problem. When I'm myself, all the problems live in here and I prioritize them and I just go through and I don't ask anybody because it's my thing. And I just make a decision and I don't reap it's my fault, right? In this, I always have to go to another person. So things take a lot longer. And the second problem is I am really bad at letting go of control. I want to be in control of everything. So I'm always I struggle, and you've told me this a lot in episodes, I struggle letting my co-founder fail. And if I can't let my co-founder fail, I don't know how I can lead a team of employees and let them fail, where I'm worried about failing my clients. So I feel like I have to control everything. What would be your advice to a successful business partnership and any advice around letting go of control, not being a jerk?
Well, first of all, so our team, have you ever taken the Kolbe assessment?
No, I haven't.
So I strongly recommend that you guys take the Kolbe assessment, and then it'll actually tell you how to work with each other. So you both take it, and then it says this, Derek, you got to keep this in mind, and your business partner, you have to keep this in mind when working with each other. Very, very important. So one thing is we have a team, our leadership team, we are all analyzers, all of us. So myself included. So we'll talk for days, bro, and not get anything done. And so we have to have people in the room that plays referee and says, wait, what is the actual topic that we're solving? And does it solve our biggest issue? So when we're having a leadership meeting, Derek, the leadership meeting should not be about, hey, what color are we gonna, make our logo, or hey, da 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 da. Like someone else should own that. Maybe it's you, maybe it's her, maybe it's someone else. But you should be like, that's not the most important thing. What is the reason we're having this meeting? Well, for us, ours is we're always growing. So, guys, if it's not about growing, then we're not going to talk about it in this meeting. You can have sidebars, whatever. So then we go through and say, okay, out of all these issues that we have, and this is part of about kind of like EOS and a couple other working models together, but you have these issues that people are having. Which of these are going to bring us the most results? Then that's how you prioritize it. So guess what? No brain dumping. You don't get to just come in the meeting and just be like, well, I have this problem. And then you're like, well, let me just spit some theory on that problem. And then I'm like, well, let me spit theory on your theory on the problem. And you just go back and forth like that. Not allowed.
That's every time.
You're not allowed.
That's every time. Oh my God.
Yeah, you're not allowed to have meetings like that. So it's like, we can have conversations like that. Like if we're sitting down for dinner, or if I call you real quick and say, hey, Derek, let me talk through this real quickly with you. I got this problem, and we can spit theory all day long. But in this meeting is only about the most important things, and your issues have to be submitted before the meeting. And then we have to agree on the topic that we're going to talk about, and we have to come to a conclusion when we talk about it. And it has to bring the most impact of whatever the reason that we're having this meeting.
Got it. So you're basically saying don't ever schedule a meeting without coming with predetermined topics that you agree on. So basically, let me back up and kind of apply it to myself. So we tend to do exactly what you said. And like I analyze this, she analyzes this, back and forth. And then even worse, Gary, throw in brain dumping all the problems at one time. And then it's like 7 problems at one. That, as simple as it is, sometimes it's the simplest advice that helps. What we're not doing, which I'm literally going to do after this call, is brain dump on a note stock all of the problems, prioritize them by order of which is going to generate the most results.
Wait. Solving. No. Hold on. So first, you need to have a weekly meeting. This is your leadership meeting.
Okay.
So only the people that need to be there are there. Then you have an issue list, but you have to decide before you make your issue list, why are we having this meeting? What's the purpose of this recurring meeting?
Okay.
And you're like, well, it's for strategic initiatives. Okay, great. Or it's for only things around growth, or it's only to solve the biggest issues that are going to bring the most impact to the company. So you define it. You put that in the meeting. Like, this is our leadership meeting, and it's only for XYZ. That's going to change the topics that you bring to that meeting.
Okay.
Right? Because if you say, let's just say it's a meeting that is only about growth. Cool. Then here's the issues that are going to bring growth. All right, out of these issues that are going to bring growth, which one's going to bring the most growth or the fastest growth? And then you say, okay, this one. All right, what are we actually solving for? It's called IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. You got to look that up. And then it helps you parse out that issue. Like, what are we actually solving here on this topic before we even start talking about it? Okay, now present the topic. Cool. Now let's solve it together. Let's discuss it first. Let's debate it. And then now let's solve it. We have to move to solve. You don't get to just keep you can't bring new issues either. You can't say, yeah, but what about that? No. We're only solving this issue. All right. You gotta like have self-control and somebody like really snapping on you. And then at that point, now you can start solving it. Okay, cool. We're solving it. And you might come to the conclusion, this actually isn't the biggest issue. So that's the first solve. The second solve is, if you're going to have a business partner, you're going to have people that you're working with, Derek, you're in charge of this. You go do that. You don't need me. Business partner, you're going to go solve this. You don't need me. We'll meet back up at the top. Yes, we'll have meetings. Yes, we'll have discussions. Yes, we'll even have phone calls real quick. Like, hey, I need to chat through this really quickly. But we're not going to sit here and debate every little thing that you're doing inside of your department. That's your job. You go take care of it. You're going to get your department to grow. I'm going to get mine to grow. And we're going to be able to solve and meet in the middle. That's the goal of working with people.
Gary, I cannot begin to express how ridiculously helpful that was. So you're basically saying back everything up, stop coming to random meetings, knocking on the office door and saying, I have these problems, let's talk for an hour, and getting lost in conversation, debate for an hour. First, schedule a weekly meeting and decide what the agenda or objective of that meeting is. Is it an always growing meeting? Is it a retention meeting? Is it just a strategy meeting with touch points? What is the meeting? Set that cadence. Then each week, write all of your issues that you're having, prioritize them, send them to your partner or your leadership team, and decide which to bring up in the meeting, which is the top central
on the meeting. Yeah. So you both
do
bring
it
your
in the
problems.
meeting. Do it
Yeah,
in the meeting.
So yep.
In the
boom,
meeting.
boom, boom.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the meeting. Okay. So keep my own list. She'll keep her own list. And then in the meeting, say, okay, hey, what's your list? What's my list? Cool. Hey, I think this is top priority. Okay, cool. I agree. Then IDS.
Which one's
identify
which one's going to bring the most impact to whatever the purpose of the meeting is. Yes, that's how you
got
pick
it. So
yeah.
Identify, define, reset, and then solve.
I identify, discuss, and then
discuss.
solve.
Okay,
Yeah.
discuss and solve. So every meeting, if it's an hour-long meeting, every Friday, we should identify the core issue, discuss the core issues, and then actually solve. And that means putting in place, hey, Derek, you're responsible for this. Hey,
Yes.
John, you're responsible for this. Here's when this is due. Here's what success looks like.
And then accountability is that you put that into your meeting. So then the next meeting you start is, are you on track?
Who did this?
Are you on track or off track with this? And then that holds you accountable to the thing that you actually solve.
The last question here for you would be this. It's really just a quick two-parter. If we have other issues that need to be discussed, how do we go about doing that without scheduling formal meetings, without getting lost in the conversation? Any advice around that?
Slack and just Loom, Slack. Like, hey, Derek, hey, I got this problem. I just had a thing where I needed to make sure other people were aligned. So I was just like, hey, here's how I'm seeing this. Do you guys see this way too? Yep, 100%. Or no, this is how I'm seeing it. And we're just messaging back and forth. But you don't have you'll have endless meetings if you do it any other way. We do. Right?
It's brutal. It's sometimes it's just all talk and then we get lost in thought.
Yep. And then it'll take all of your energy. You'll have all your energy. You have no momentum and you actually won't solve anything.
Oh my God, all the energy, the anxiety, the stress, the pressure of like, oh my God.
I really think you need to implement, like half the stuff I just gave you is like EOS.
Traction?
Yeah,
EOS, right?
You need to implement it. You might even want to hire an implementer to like do it for you.
Gary, any other books or resources you recommend we check out? I know Traction's the biggest one. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, and Traction's good to a point, right? Like I'm not a full-fledged, yes, you got to use Traction. There's other ones out there as well. But it's better. Something is better than nothing that you have right now. You have think about it this way. You have no business operating system.
None. Absolutely none. You're absolutely right. None.
So that's what you have to solve. You have to get a business operating system of some sort. You either take somebody else's, you build your own, or you have a coach come in and implement one for you. And it does all of it. It does your core values. It does your why. It does your target market. It does your market. Like your operating system will solve a lot of that for you.
That's literally exactly what we need. And Gary, this episode has been tremendously valuable, from core values and our why and what to do, to how to run with a co-founder and how to run leadership meetings. This has been tremendously valuable. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this episode as valuable as I did. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this episode of the 8-Figure Agency Show. If you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And hey, join the club over on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. We are still reaching over 2 million people per month with Shorts. So go check us out on there, and check us out on YouTube. Video First Show. We record every single video or episode since day one, and we're now well over 50 episodes. Gary, it's been a year. Hopefully we can do this for a year longer, and we can add zeros to everything in the process. Guys, thanks for watching and listening. Till next time. Peace.